Hey YouTube, it's McNeil here, and this week I want to talk to you all a little bit about a topic that's very important to me, and that is Iceman from the X-Men coming out of the closet. Iceman is one of the original 5 members of the X-Men, including Jean Grey, Cyclops, Beast, and Angel. Now, the X-Men were founded in 1963 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as an allegory for civil rights movements, women's rights movements, and the LGBT movement. Due to the existence of the Comics Code Authority back then, though, they really couldn't talk about a lot of these hot-button issues that counterculture was kind of sweeping the nation with, so they decided to make these people your typical middle-class citizens in America, you know, just white privileged teenagers with a normal upbringing who just so happen to be mutants. Now, Stan Lee wanted these superpowered beings to have these abilities, not from some sort of spider bite or some gamma radiation. No, he wanted them to be born with the abilities because he figured that if readers heard that they were born that way, that they wouldn't really argue where these abilities came from. But we know how that works out when you try to convince someone that you were just born this way. The X-Men have always been seen as a representation of these commonly marginalized groups because they are often oppressed for something that they can't control. Over the years, though, the Comics Code Authority got a little bit more lax with their standards and guidelines, and we were able to see a lot of these issues come to the forefront, including the introduction of a whole bunch of LGBT characters such as Mystique, Anole, Shatterstar, Richter, Hulkling, Wiccan, just to name a few, and most recently, Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. Now, why is this a complicated topic, though? Well, let me break it down for you. In the current X-Men universe, there is the present-day Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, who identifies as a straight male. A few years ago, though, the 1960s original team of X-Men was brought into the present day through some sort of weird time stream cube thingy, and they are now currently living in our present-day time alongside their counterparts. Now, other than finding out that they have either, gone crazy, become big blue beasts, or even died, these X-Men from the 60s are introduced to a brave new world where all the issues that were very relevant in their time are kind of slowly dissipating. The culture shock alone would have thrown any of these characters for a loop, but I feel like the original X-Men handled it with grace and poise and are learning to adapt to their current surroundings. Which, in terms for Bobby Drake, meant that now, instead of growing up as a teenager in the 1960s, he's growing up as a teenager in 2015, which I feel like is a great time for any LGBT youth to come out because you're seeing all of these different representations of your culture in the media and understanding that you're not so different from everyone else. Iceman, coming from the 60s and seeing this now, is obviously going to have a few of his own wires crossed and understand that, wait a minute, maybe these feelings that I'm feeling deep down inside, I don't have to repress anymore. The internet is all up in arms about Bobby coming out because they feel like this is not true to who the character is. We don't know that, though. The character of Bobby Drake has always been kind of this goofball who overcompensates a lot, making crude jokes at really inappropriate times, and I feel like that actually rings incredibly true to anybody coming from that sort of era. But some of the arguments that I'm seeing on the internet right now are enough for me to want to go crazy. Like, oh, but what about the grown-up version of Bobby? Why isn't he gay? Bitch, please, that's like asking a 40-year-old man with a wife and 4 kids who just recently came out why he wasn't gay when he was 20 years old. Newsflash, honey, he was gay and just didn't want to admit it to himself or anybody else. Our generation and the one before us grew up in this society where heteronormative culture convinced them that homosexuality wasn't something that you were born with, but something that you grew into. But I think we can all agree, at least those of us who were sane enough to admit it, that we are born this way. Our parents grew up saying things like, ooh, Tommy is gonna be such a lady killer one day, or ooh, Jenna, you're gonna get all the boys when you grow up. And that just kind of instills this really fucked up notion in kids' minds that, oh, if I'm not straight, I'm not going to be viewed as normal. Another argument floating around is, well, he slept with women, he can't be completely gay then. Now, while I myself have never felt the tender embrace of a woman sexually, I'm sure other gay men out there have. In fact, I know other gay men out there who have. It's called experimenting, and it's not just the thing that your sister did her sophomore year of college that she wrote about in her diary. No, it can be applied to gay people too. Like I said before, we grew up in this heteronormative society where we believe that if we didn't at least give it a shot to be straight, that we have failed. So obviously there are gay men and women out there who tried to sleep with the opposite gender to make themselves like it. Oh, and oops, turns out they don't. This happens all the time, but it's just a matter of if it's a college student trying it once to see if he'll like it, or a grown-ass man who's lived the past 20 years of his life convincing him that he did in fact enjoy this when really deep down he knew that he was only sexually and romantically attracted to men, but who felt that if he admitted that to himself or anybody else, then he was going to be shunned from society. And to all the people out there saying, well, couldn't someone else have read his mind? Why didn't Professor X know? Professor Xavier made it a point to protect his children at any costs. Back in the 60s, if you were a mutant, you were obviously going to be shunned by society. But if you were gay and a mutant, you were fucked. If in the off chance Professor X knew that Bobby was struggling with his sexuality, I am sure he would not have forced him to come out of the closet before he was ready in fear of endangering Bobby's life. Or maybe Bobby just did a good enough job repressing it early on so that nobody could have dug that deep into his mind and been like, oh, he has homosexual thoughts. And to all the people out there saying, but comics are for kids, I don't want my children growing up reading about gay characters. Did you not pay attention this entire video? We should be teaching children about this at a very early age. Not that we should be teaching them to be homosexual, but that we should be teaching them that there are a number of different sexual and gender identities that exist in this world that it is totally okay for them to identify with. Luckily for me, I grew up in a household where I heard my parents say, if any of my kids ends up gay, I don't care as long as they're happy, but not a lot of people have that. That's because we keep raising generation after generation fixated on this heteronormative standard that has been set forth by our forefathers that we need to just get the fuck rid of. Go forth, young ones, and be whoever it is you feel that you are. And how are we supposed to teach kids that this is okay? By giving them accurate representation of all different sexual identities and gender expressions in different forms of media. Right now, we should be celebrating the fact that one of the original X-Men from the 60s and now identifies as gay. They just rewrote over 50 years of comic book history, and we should be thankful for that. The only other main character in the comic book world who has come out as LGBT in recent years was the Green Lantern, and that wasn't even in the main continuity. Fucking Earth 2. Guys, it's really cool that we have a gay X-Man. Now I'm just waiting on a gay Avenger. The entire point of this storyline is to show readers that you can take whatever circumstances you're born into and break free from them, because that's what this day and age is all about. And if you can't stand for that, then you can't stand with the X-Men. Thank you all so much for watching this rant. If you agreed with any of the points I made, be sure to like this video, comment down below letting me know what you thought of Iceman's coming out. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and until next time, I will catch you later, nerds.